Hi friends, welcome to today's video. My name's Stephanie and today I'm going to be showing you my best polishes inspired by the light academia aesthetic. I'm sure you already have an idea of what light academia looks like. It basically is a subculture that emphasizes visually lighter aesthetics and themes, especially when it comes to academic pursuits. So just think of lots of beautiful ivories, soft, sophisticated beiges, and of course, milk chocolate browns for a little warmth. I know the general beige aesthetic can be very divisive. A lot of people can consider it boring, but I think there's something so classy and refined about it. So let me just show you my picks. Starting with the ivories, the first shade that I have is Morgan Taylor's Wrapped Around Your Finger, which came out last winter, but it quickly became one of my favorites. This one has a beautiful formula, which is expected by Morgan Taylor, but I just also really love this color. I think I would personally call it a true ivory in my opinion, where it's a bit of a yellowy kind of leaning shade, or it has this like yellow undertone, but I still find it super flattering and classy. I obviously also had to include Holo Taco's Ivory Tower, which funny enough just came out in the Dark Academia collection. This one is absolutely stunning in both its color and especially its formula. It's impressively opaque on the first coat alone, so it's just so incredibly satisfying to paint with. I think I would say that this one is the most neutral and also the brightest off-white color. Next I have the classic OPI My Vampire is Buff. This is my original bottle from, I want to say 2013 or something. It's one of my favorite ivory shades for a palette cleanser, especially in the fall. Now, because this one is so old, I've had to add thinner a couple of times, so on the first coat you can see it is pretty thin and streaky, and since my bottle is well used, I really had to like dip back into the bottle for the second coat, so don't mind me struggling with the formula too much, just admire the end result. It is just so beautiful. This one's a little warmer than the last shade. Now getting away from the ivories and into some beiges, the first one that I have is Color Department's Blank Canvas, which is simply described as a sophisticated nude. Now, obviously, this isn't my perfect nude by any means. It's a little too dark and cool-toned, I think. Like, I almost want to say it has a slightly grayish undertone, but I don't know. Maybe that's just me. Either way, I still think this one is just so beautiful. Then I have Ave Limestone, which if you've been following my channel for a while, you might be surprised to see this one. I admittedly did not like this color back when it first released a couple of winters ago. It just always gave me this odd, uncanny vibe, like applying foundation to your nails, but it has grown on me over the years. It's described as a khaki tan, which I think means it has a slightly yellow undertone. I guess I can see that, but I feel like it just looks very neutral at the same time. I wanted to also include a gold to break up all the beige, and one that I think is perfect for this aesthetic is C&D's It's Getting Golder. There's something just so soft about this shade in a way, like it's not too yellowy gold, which I think would look a little too harsh. There's almost this brushed metal kind of quality to it that I think makes it look super elegant to use with the rest of the lineup, especially in a more minimal way, like as a French tip or an accent nail. I do have another sparkly shade. This one is Holo Taco's Haute Couture from the Holo Barista bundle. This one is a crushed hollow finish, which I think adds some nice texture to this lineup without being too overpowering, since the hollow in this is really subtle. I think it goes without saying, this shade just has such a beautiful and classy vibe to it. I'm always a fan of a neutral, but make it more sparkly. Now getting into some warmer beiges, the first one that I have is Static Nails Creme Brulee, which you might remember from my favorite beiges and browns video last year. This one, as you can see, is a little bit more of a crelly kind of formula, so I feel like on the first coat it just gives this beautiful wash of color that sort of gives me mannequin hand vibes. I think it's only accurate to say under very direct lighting, because in other lighting you can really see the warm undertones in this one, so it's not my perfect nude by any means, but it's still really flattering in my opinion. Next I have Cracked Polish's Rooftops in Bologna, which is described as a rose tan cream. This is one of the most recent additions to my collection. It came out last month in the Italy collection, and I just have been loving it. I feel like this one also reminds me of Ave Limestone, where it almost has that foundation kind of look to it, but in a much more flattering way, especially because this one has those pinky kind of undertones. Up next I have China Glaze's The Snuggle is Real, which is another absolute favorite of mine. This is such a cozy and warm, maybe tan shade. This definitely has a lot more red undertones than what I normally consider tan, so I'm not quite sure what the best color is to describe it as, but it is just so gorgeous and so cozy. It definitely reminds me a lot of the colors of the fabrics used in a lot of light academia fashion. I would love to wear this as a full mani with a cozy off-white kind of sweater. The next shade I have is LA Colors Western Boots, which I think is just described as a pinkish nude, and I guess that's fair. You can definitely see the warmer pink sort of undertones in this, but it's still a lot deeper than traditional like dusty pinks. I feel like a lot of people don't like pink because the brighter ones tend to be a little too juvenile for them, but then the dustier ones can be a little too grandma for them. Obviously, as a certified pink lover, I do not agree with that, but if you are one of those people that just can't get behind pink, maybe consider a pinky brown because it's pretty chic. This next shade is Cracked Polish's Terracotta Ruins, which is from the same Italy collection as Rooftops in Bologna. And I know, this kind of just looks orange. It looks very much out of place compared to the other shades, but I consider this like a very orange-leaning brown, where I always thought the color to describe this was sable, but I actually think it's tawny, which in my mind is always associated with a more Western kind of aesthetic, which I know is a totally different thing, but I don't know, there's something about this that just reminded me of like old leather journals or something. Then I have Sinful Colors Coffee Drip, which I put the little coffin next to it since I'm not sure what happened to Sinful Colors, so I don't know how accessible this is anymore. It came out just a couple of years ago in their Essentials line, so this one is scented like coffee. It's very mild but pleasant, which I think does add to the light academia aesthetic because I always see cute little mugs of coffee or lattes, which are a must, especially if you're studying, but even if you're just enjoying a good book. I think the color is so cozy. It is a shame that it looks nothing like the online photos because those appear darker with a more reddish kind of shimmer. Those do look really flattering, but I still really like this color for what it is. Having the yellow shimmer I think is still really beautiful. And rounding out my lineup is ILNP's Chocolate, which is a delectable chocolate brown. I think browns, especially the deeper ones, are more prevalent in the dark academia aesthetic, but there's definitely a decent amount of them that are in the light academia aesthetic. I feel like the darkest shade that they go, though, is like this medium chocolate kind of shade, which I think, again, is so cozy and so perfect. And honestly, I love the name too because it just makes me think of sitting in a cafe and ordering a little chocolate croissant or something. At least that's what I would order. And finally, here is my collage of all the shades. I feel like generally light academia has a lot of like ivories especially, but I just didn't have that many in my collection, so I feel like the main focus in my lineup were more beiges with some ivories and then warmer browns, but I still am a big fan of these shades. So that wraps up my best polishes for a light academia aesthetic. As always, I can't wait to hear what you think of my picks because I feel like I did a pretty good job, at least with focusing on the ivories and beiges. I know there can be some other color introduced, like some lighter shades of greens or blues, but it's generally in this like neutral sort of color palette, which I feel like deserves its moment since a lot of people will look at this lineup and just consider it boring. But again, I think there's just something so beautiful about a nice classic ivory shade or a really warm and flattering beige. As much as I do love colorful nail polish, I still love a nice, refined, sophisticated nail look. So I really hope that you enjoyed my picks for this aesthetic. Let me know if there are any others that you would include that you think would fit perfectly. Obviously, I will also have a dark academia video coming out soon, but that'll be in a couple of weeks just to sort of space it out. And I do have something spooky coming in between. But if you do have any other ideas on aesthetics, definitely leave them in the comments down below, or just let me know any and all thoughts you have so we can chat about it. But thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!